Would love to first know a little bit more about you, like where are you from? Where's your family from? Where are you currently living? Stuff like that.
Yeah, sure. I'm originally from Brooklyn, born and raised. Anybody who's from Brooklyn, I grew up in Midwood, and then we moved to Bay Ridge, which is kind of near the Verrazano Bridge. And real city boy, big Italian family. I'm the oldest of five kids, and everybody in my family is creative in some way. So most of us draw. My mom was a painter. My dad's a musician. My grandfather was a painter. My uncle's a painter. Um, just kind of that thing where it was inescapable growing up. Like everything was just art. So every time we go to somebody's house in the family, like even a friend or somebody related, there was always the walls just always had paintings of somebody else in my family that did it. So,
Oh,
it's just like
nice.
we go to a museum to see famous people's artwork, and then we go to everybody else's house just to see the artwork made by everybody else. And what's interesting about all of that, like as I say that, you would think, oh wow, like all my family were all artists, and they were artists in the sense that that's a skill that they had and something that they did, but like none of them were professionally an artist. Everybody had like a real life, So my grandfather was a butcher, my mother was a teacher, my father's a professor, my uncle worked in corporate America, so to me, like I had this growing up for me, art was it was inescapable, and I think maybe genetic. I don't know how, nobody knows how that works, but at least it was in my face all the time and rubbed off on me and my brothers and my sister. But so at the same time, it's inevitable, it's inescapable, but it was always in the context as art is the thing you do with the rest of your life. And then there's the thing you do to make a living, or, all the normal things. And that was kind of interesting because I didn't, so I didn't pursue art as like a career or anything ever. I didn't even, I, this hide your kids' ears, but I didn't graduate high school. I dropped out of high school. I never went to college. I'm not like in that whole thing there. And even if I was going to go to college, it's not like I was going to go to college for art. I never had some kind of idea like, oh, I'm going to be an artist when I grow up. I was going to be an artist when I grow up after the hours of whatever it
Right.
is that I do.
Yeah.
So it kind of got to a point. I was in my mid late 20s, and one of my younger brothers, one of the youngest, he was the first one to actually go to art school. Like he went to the School of Visual Arts in Manhattan, and then his whole thing was like he was going to pursue a career in art. And like he was the first one out of all of us to do that, and it was a weird thing. And he would come back, he'd come over my house and like tell me all the things he's learning. And it just started to rub off on me like, oh, like my little brother's going to do this and I like to do it. Why don't I pursue this? So so that was like the first time it actually hit me that maybe this is a possibility. And then the equal realization at the other time was I live in Brooklyn, New York City, um, which even today is one of the most expensive places in the world to live. And oh, I'm going to pursue a career as an artist. Like I'll starve to death or I'll
Yeah.
die. Like, this isn't going to work. There's no. So it kind of, both these things happened at the same time where I decided to leave the city. And I think it was about time that I kind of just ran out of the city boy part of me. I don't know
Yeah.
what it was, but I'd done a lot of traveling around the world and around the country, and it just I wanted a different life. So I moved down to North Carolina, in the mountains, so near Asheville. I'm about a half hour south of Asheville,
Okay.
so we're right in the mountains. And um, the idea there was like, well, first off, any place is cheaper than New York, with few exceptions. And even people here are like, oh my God, it's so expensive to live here. I'm like, you have no idea, you know. But so it was basically like I could take more chances. I could come down here and I can pursue this. And if I fall on my face, I'm not gonna die. Like, you know, I can muddle my way through and maybe even stick out a little more. There's less people here, there's less stuff going on. Like in New York, you know, I'd have to like, even if I stood in the middle of Times Square naked, people would just pass by. Like nobody pays
It
attention
would
to
be
me.
like, oh, it's Tuesday. No big deal.
Yeah. Like, oh yeah, you know, there's that guy, there's the naked cowboy who used to sing
For
you
sure.
know, and everybody, you know, after a while, everybody's just like, yeah, all right, there's that guy,
This
whatever.
guy again.
You know, but if I did that around here, I'd be like, you know, front page
Right.
news. It'd be crazy. So, you know, not that that's something I'm gonna do, but you
That's not your
know,
medium.
no, no, I'm not a performance artist, no. So, so yeah, so that was basically in 2007 is when I moved down here, and you know, slow building and all that kind of stuff. But really, like I said, it wasn't until I was 29 years old where I was like, oh, maybe I'll start to pursue some kind of artistic life. And it took many years for it to still eventually look like it's heading in the right direction, you know, and then a few more years that it started to solidify, and then more years until now where it's like, okay, obviously this is the thing I was meant to do. So glad I did it, and you know, it was worth all the sacrifice, and it wasn't easy and all that kind of stuff, but it was so much better than if I had tried it up there or if I had just never done it at all. You know, I had a bunch of corporate jobs and all that kind of stuff, and I mean, I don't even know the person I would be if I was still kind of pursuing that kind of stuff. So, so yeah, so that's, I guess that's the basic story in terms of, you know, my living situations and, you know, family and upbringing and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, how did living in Brooklyn positively affect your art? I mean, you were so inspired by your family, but how did being in Brooklyn, in the 80s and 90s, how did that inspire your art?
Big time. You know, it's funny. When I moved down here, at first I was really more inspired by here because everything was so different, you know. So it's sort of like, I don't know, I guess it was a phase that I was in where, you know, I was kind of adjusting my persona, you know. So I
Mm-hmm.
was sort of trying to shed the city boy part of me, you know,
Yeah.
and exploring this new thing. And then it wasn't until later that I really did see the aspects of that city life, you know, that that affected me. And it's not the traditional like city things like you know, riding the subway or, you know, big skyscrapers and stuff like that. Like my art doesn't have that kind of more claustrophobic vibe to it. But
Right.
there's what you said kind of really hit on it exactly. Was it was just a vibe in the 80s and 90s. And look, I don't know, maybe the vibe was similar in Kansas or Missouri or something like that, but I wasn't there. So I can only say that the vibe for me, that Brooklyn vibe, and I wasn't in hip Brooklyn, I wasn't in cool Brooklyn. So people who like see Brooklyn on TV, like that's not where I lived. I lived in the part where nobody even goes to because it's so far out of the way and all that. And that there's something about it. There's some what it basically boils down to is sentimentality and nostalgia that I can't escape. Like as I don't try, but if I tried, I would fail miserably. So there's a big part of that. Like there was just something in the air, and I feel like this probably transcends places. You know, I know many people have this a similar experience who didn't live there, but um, yeah, that's really something that draws for me, and uh, you know, inspires me still that I can now combine into the other things that kind of surround me. You know, I look out my window and there's mountains, and you know, I just drive anywhere and there's mountains and trees and stuff like that. So it's a very interesting kind of juxtaposition that I don't know. it just now it just flows very naturally. It's like, okay, all these little things, they just kind of come through and filter through, and the less I think about it, the better. The less I try and like
Yeah.
analyze it and be like, okay, this little thing came from this thing and that. Now it's better when it's just kind of like, it
It
just
just
happens.
flows. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's awesome that you have the two sides of it. You know, you have the time where you were in the city and that whole experience, and now you have the other side of the coin, I guess you could say,
yeah, yeah.
is a totally different lifestyle. So it's really great that you have both of those things to draw from.
Yeah, and I think also I mean, I'm sure it would be equally interesting if it was the other way around, but for me, I like the fact that my young, wild, carefree stuff was in the city. Like, I can only think of the city like that. Like, you just can go anywhere and do anything, and you could be faceless in a huge crowd, or you could just do crazy weird things. And I don't know, the city's kind of meant for that, kind of thing.
It's very
And,
accepting of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
really, really, and almost
Encourages it
encouraging.
almost. Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
almost in a bad way, but that's
A little bit sometimes.
yeah. But it's better I got that out of my system than in the city. And then I can come here and kind of chill out, like, okay, yeah, no, everything's more calm now. And
Slower. Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. I like that. I resisted it for a long time. When I first moved here, um, I told everybody that I could, and I said this as often as I could to hold me accountable to it, to hold myself accountable to it. But when I moved, I said, no matter what happens, no matter how much I hate it, no matter how much anything bad happens, I can't leave for 2 years, because I know myself very well, and I know that I'm gonna I'm gonna miss all the things that I know, and I need to like burn that out of my system. And it's probably gonna take me 2 years, and it took like about a year and a half. Like every day, I'd just wake up and I'd be like, why can't it be more like blah blah blah? Why can't stores just be open 24 hours? Or why can't this place just be more convenient or this? And it's like, yeah, I just needed to burn that out of my system, and it calmed me down like big time, which was awesome. So, and plays into my artwork too. I think if I pursued art when I was younger, my voice would be very different,
It
like
would be
very
different. Yeah, of course it would be because you were a different person. You were in a different place in your life. So your art would
probably,
definitely be different.
yeah, probably like more aggressive or uh subversive. I don't know, but
Probably more industrial too,
yeah,
because of
yeah,
where you
probably.
were. Yeah,
Yeah,
that would
without a
have more
doubt.
of the feel to it.
Just
Yeah,
surrounded by it, like, again, you just reflect what artists are basically mirrors, and that's what I would have been. So yeah.
yeah. So what artists inspired you even when you were younger or when you started to get into making prints? So what
Yeah,
other inspired you?
I mean, like I said, when I was a kid, art was just, it was an everyday thing. We just drew all day. So the obvious, Disney, obviously, we just had Disney books all over the house, and would just draw everything that was in those. um and all the cartoons of the day, Thundercats and He-Man and all that kind of stuff. I loved all that stuff. um and but also, again, all the stuff that I saw my family doing was just as inspirational, and like, and influencing. Like, I would try and draw. It's funny, I look back on it now, and I didn't even realize this for many, many years. I only just realized this recently, that my style is, um not in a technique kind of way, but in a subject matter, like conceptually, is very similar to my mother's, which is kind of ridiculous. And I didn't even notice, just one of these things that I kind of picked up. But then I think about it, I'm like, yeah, of course, we were surrounded by these images all day. What else? That's how I learned how to think, or that's how I learned how to see things. Um so even that kind of stuff was hugely influential. But then as I got older, in the 90s, I played in bands, in Manhattan and stuff like that. So I was always the artist in the band. So I would make all the flyers and stuff like that. And, at that time, Kozik was obviously the guy. So, I'd see the Nirvana posters and the Mudhoney posters and all that kind of stuff. And so I wanted to make our flyers look like that. So I would draw kind of in that style. And that was fun too, because there were no consequences to it. It's not like we were trying to sell anything. It was literally to make as many photocopies and then go to every telephone pole in Manhattan and just paste them on there. And that
The
was
good old days.
the good old days. I mean, really, like, it's good. I'm so glad that I had that experience too, because I still hold that, like, when I'm still making new work, the original point of a poster is to advertise the show. Like, I understand that it's merchandise now, and I understand that it has a life. Some people consider it like an investment, and so I'm going to buy it now and then it'll gain value and then I can use it later for this thing and that thing. And that's great. It's cool. But I think remembering the original intention of what this thing is supposed to be kind of enhances the eventual outcome. So even if it is an investment, it'll be a better investment because I don't know. I think because I made it sort of, again, to just advertise the show, and I still think about that today. Like, I know I'm not going to put this much work into it and this much money into screen printing it and all that just to duct tape it around a telephone pole. Okay.
Right.
But if I did, would it be effective? If somebody was walking down the street and they were looking at this and they saw it, would they stop and then be like, oh, like, yo, that might be a fun show to go to? Because that's what we used to do. I mean, I don't know if you had
Yeah.
the same experience, but just walking down the street and a lot of shows I went to, a lot of albums I bought was because the album cover looked awesome, right?
Yep.
Like, I don't know what's in it, but it looks cool. And the same thing for shows. Like, if I see enough flyers for a band and they all look dope, like, I'm like, oh, I
I'm gonna
mean,
go
maybe
check
they're
that
good.
out.
Let's go. Yeah, right. I mean, what is it, $5 to go to a show? Like, it's no big deal. We're gonna go out anyway. Let's go. And so that's still like a thought that I've kind of put um, into the new things I make, knowing that it's not going to serve that purpose. I understand people already bought tickets to the show. We're not trying to get drum
Yeah.
up business, but yeah. And then later on, you know, my I guess my favorite artist is James Jean. He's been a huge influence on me, and just seeing his progress really inspires me to remember, like, it doesn't matter like how long you've been doing something, you can still get better.
Mhm.
You can
Yeah.
still look at your old stuff. Like, it's funny, i'm I'm very capable of looking at my old work and being like, that's horrible, like, it's really bad. Like, it could be even something I made last year and I'm like, I could I could run circles around that now. But fine, what am I going to do? I can't erase the past or anything. And it's a progression. But I remember kind of, again, James Jean. I love his work so much, and it's very inspiring. And sometimes what I like to do is try and look at his artwork through his eyes. I know I can't. I know I can't be him or read his mind or anything like that. But just as a mental exercise, and like, look at something he made new, and then imagine, okay, what's the person who made this, and now how is he looking at his old work? And then I would just go look at some of his old work and see, I could imagine what he's seeing in the old stuff. And even though I love the old stuff, or that old stuff was some of the stuff that really inspired me and made me, a better artist, now I can look at it and be like, yeah, I see the shortcomings of that, and I see where the progress was. And it's like, but if you had asked me back then, I'd say, no, this is the pinnacle. Like, he hit the top already. Like, I mean, everything's gravy after here. And it's like, no, it's not. Like, you could always just get better. And it's the same with musicians, I mean, any kind of creative endeavor is the same thing. And I think obviously the best musicians are the ones who last so long that they can just keep doing that over and over. And take the chances, and probably fail sometimes too, but then you still get to, you find those little things, it's like, I don't know, you sometimes you're in the dark and you're just looking for the next rung on the ladder, and you're gonna miss a few times, but one time you grab it and you're
One
like,
time you
okay,
grab
at
it.
least, yeah, at least I get up a few more inches, and then we'll do this again later.
For
um,
sure. But
yeah,
failing is part of it too. It's
yeah,
part of the whole process. And you have to start somewhere. And I think that that's part of it is accepting that there's going to be failures and not feeling super defeated by that.
that's a hard thing. It's such a truth, but it's so much easier to say than to live through it. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
because on my best days, I can say that exactly how you said it with full confidence and be like, it's all part of the process, and I believe that, and that's the truth. But sometimes when you're in the middle of it, yeah, it's not easy,
Yeah.
because you know it's like in the world that we're in now, just the particular way that culture and society is set up is like, it's still a fringe thing to do, to be creative as like your way that you earn a living and stuff like that. And there are way more secure things that you could do. You could
Mm-hmm.
get a job where you're going to have a paycheck, and all that stuff. And of course, there's always a fear, like you might get fired, or the company might go under, or something might happen, or who knows, fine. But there's so much more security. And um, and I lived that life for many years, and there are big benefits to it for sure.
Yeah.
And so sometimes when it gets to that like rough part, there's the other part of me is like, if this all falls apart, there's nothing to fall back on. Like, I got to start from scratch, and it's a really scary thought. So again, it's like it's an important thing to say, and it's an important thing to think, and hear more people say it and stuff like that. But man, going through it sometimes is,
Oh,
yeah, it's
yeah.
scary. It's super scary.
When you're right in the thick of it, it's up to your neck and you're just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
ugh.
Is this it? Like, is this it? Did I run out of like goodwill or something? I don't
Yeah.
know.
I ran out of good ideas. I'm done.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So, what kind of art is hanging up in your house?
It's a great question. So mostly James Jean.
Nice.
Oh, there's my camera behind me. So that's a James Jean piece behind me there.
I was eyeing that up for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot. So basically, I have, let's see, James Jean, my uncle, who's one of my favorite artists in the world. Nobody knows who he is. He's just my uncle, but his paintings are all over my house. Um,
Cool.
and I'm just walking in my mind. I'm walking downstairs. There's another screen print artist he's not in the rock poster scene or anything like that. His name is Edward Bordette, and he's unbelievable. He basically, like, he's a painter, but he paints with screen printing. So he kind of builds the screen print like you would build a painting. So like when I screen print, everything's done. Like, I know what the artwork's supposed to look like at the end, and I just go through the steps. I made the artwork. Now I just have to print it, using the process of screen printing. What he does is he screen prints as if like each screen is a layer of brush strokes, and then he just builds it up like that. And
Okay.
when it's done, it's just like stunning. It's unbelievable. And the ones I have are some of his city scenes, which I think are just kind of memories from home and stuff like that. So those are beautiful. And that's basically it. Like, that's kind of what I try to, I guess. Oh, behind me this way, that's um shoot, Phil Phil Roberts. Oh no, this is very embarrassing. Sorry. This is a wood cover artist that is another big inspiration to me. Just oh shoot, sorry.
No, you're fine.
Yeah. Um But yeah, he's in Jersey. Shoot, let me see. Yeah, Phillip Roberts. Um, he's kind of a wood carving artist, and he makes these incredible like 3D wood carving things. So I've got a
Yeah, that's
couple.
an incredible piece. It looks very cool.
Oh man, like so I just stare over there. So my guitars are back there. So like if I'm playing or something, I'm just like looking at that, and whatever the other side of my brain that's not working at the time is like locked into that and just falling into it, and that's it's pretty
Yeah.
amazing. So yeah, so that's I mean, it's a big thing for me to surround myself with the things that I am inspired by. So no matter which room I go into, which is no different than anybody else's house, but for me also, it's another kind of reminder. So when I'm again when I'm working, when I'm making something new, I'm always thinking like what my goal is to make something that somebody's going to hang in their home the same way that I hang another artist's work in my house. And why like why am I doing that? You know, like why am I hanging up James Jean? I mean, one, I like it, so for me it inspires me, but I'm an artist, so that has almost like a function in my life, whereas like my wife has art in the house too, and she's not an artist, so why is she looking at it? Like why does she want to have that hung up? And I think we kind of forget like to even ask that question, like what are we doing? Like it's and what I think it is that well, there's something about the art. There's something in the art that's kind of connecting to us on a very ethereal level. Like it's not anything you can pinpoint or look at or anything like that. And what it does is it reminds us of parts of us that are inside of us, and then so that's important, and it might also remind us of like emotions or memories or something. It might just have an association, especially like a concert poster, which is one of the most important parts of concert posters to me, is that the whole idea is that this is supposed to remind you of the experience you had at the show,
Hmm.
um, so you never forget it. And so now the image and that experience are together, they're locked in, so when you see it you remember that feeling. And that's every artwork. Like all the artwork I have in my house, it reminds me of something. There's something, some kind of feeling that's with it. And then there's another aspect to it, which is when somebody comes over our home, they see the artwork and they can know me better by seeing the artwork. So like they, whether they know James Jean or not, let's just say they come into this room and there's a James Jean on the wall. Um, Whatever, they're going to look at it and have a feeling like anybody does when you look at art, and they're going to project that now onto me. So if I had like if I had something that wasn't me on the wall, it would give them such a wrong impression of who I am. But if it's the right thing, if it's the thing that I can connect with, it's sort of like, well, if they're close friends or close relatives, they'll know me in a deeper way. And if they're a stranger and they're just kind of over, hanging out or something like that, well, now that it's another way for them to get to know me. It's another way for them to be like, oh, I get it. Like I can understand this person a little better on a very like abstract level, which is so important. Like, everything can't be like so concrete and objective. Like, there has
Hmm.
to be room for all that subjectivity. And so yeah, so that's kind of like the purpose of why I think about, having these things on my walls. But for me, then I use that to like play into when I'm making stuff. So when I'm sitting down to sketch, like I was today, I was just working on sketches for a new project and trying to come up with my ideas. So there's many avenues that I go down, in terms of like, okay, how am I going to come up with this concept? How am I going to figure this out? I'm feeling these things out. And one of the things is, even in the roughest doodle, I mean, just a doodle, like if I showed it to you, you wouldn't even understand it because it's just squiggles. But like I know what's supposed to be there. I'll develop it later. I'm just putting information down. It's fine. But even in that, I can look at it and kind of imagine what that looks like on somebody's wall and how they're going to feel when they pass by it, how somebody else is going to feel if they come over the house and see it, and like what's the meaning that's going to be inside of it. It has to be more than just a cool thing you put on the wall, or something like that. Like there has to be more to it. And because of that, it's not for everybody, like the kind of art I make isn't for everybody's type of personality. It's not going to represent everybody. But that's fine. And that's why I'm so lucky that the avenue of artwork that I got into was concert posters, because if I'm making something for Humphreys McGee, we're already on the same level. Like, okay, like I'm preaching to the choir already, but like we're cool. Okay, so now let me make something awesome for you. I'm not trying to make something that's like I don't know, a Kenny Rogers poster for Humphreys McGee. It's like, yeah, there might be some crossover in the Venn diagram. That's fine, but it's beautiful that like the type of art that I make is already kind of focused into the type of person, the personality,
Yeah,
and I can just kind of go with that, which is great because now I'm already starting off up here, and then I can just kind of like really take it. It's awesome.
for sure, for sure. So being a musician and already doing art for bands that you were playing in, is that why you got into concert posters, or was there another reason that you went that avenue?
Um, Let me think about that. Like I it's weird. Like I don't know that I made like a deliberate choice. I wanted to pursue art. So like I said, my brother went to SVA, and he was showing me things, and he was going for a completely different avenue of art. And so I was like, well, I gotta pursue this, but like what do I know how to do? And who do I know? Like, all my friends were musicians. So it really was just like kind of a peanut butter and jelly type of thing. Like I just fell into it. Now, I don't know if you're familiar. Do you remember gigposters.com, the
Yes.
website?
Yeah.
So I was like hip to that very early on. And I would always just look at the posters because it was awesome artwork. And I wasn't even necessarily like following particular artists or really getting too into the geekdom of it. That was much later that I kind of really was like, oh, this guy, okay, and then this thing, okay, this style, all that, okay. More is just like it's a website I go to every once in a while and just look at all the cool art, um, and so I think that was in my brain. And then I was also like, well, I made this picture, like I drew this illustration. What am I gonna do with it? Like, oh, like my buddy's got a show. I'll put his band name on it, and like we'll make photocopies and use it as a flyer, and I think it just kind of kept going in that direction. It's a hard thing to say. Like I don't think I set out to do it until it became so obvious that like, oh, this is what you're doing, so just do that. And then I was like, oh yeah, right, okay, well then I'll just follow this. All these people are doing it on gigposters.com. I'll just be one of them. And again, even with that, I never considered like any of those people, oh, they make a living doing this? Like, I was just like, oh yeah, it's something they do on the side, just like everybody else who makes art. And then lo and behold, my
You're like,
only
oh, wait a minute.
yeah, oh, I could actually do this. Look at and look at me now. So yeah, I don't have like the eureka moment for something like that. I think it really was just
Kind of
it just
happened.
happened. Yeah,
And
it
then it
was
made
meant to be.
sense.
Yeah. Well, it clearly made sense. Like
Yeah.
it's just that I don't know. It just came to be.
That's kind of how it was with me and my show too. It's just like I never went to school for radio or did any of those things, and it just kind of came together, and then now I'm doing it and it's like, yeah, this is what I
No,
do.
Training, I might piss off a lot of people saying this. Training for creative endeavors, I think, is highly overrated. Because I mean, there's a place for it and all that. I'm not like poo-pooing it completely, but exactly like what you just said is like, yeah, I understand. You know, if you had to be a broadcaster 30 years ago, well, good luck. You know, you kind of got to follow the rules. You got to go through the thing and all that kind of stuff. But it's a different world right now. And look at like, yeah, look at what you can do. You know, and it found you and you found it and it works. It's like you put all the pieces together. I like this thing. I like this thing. I'm good at this thing and I'm pretty good at this thing. And I want to learn about this thing. Just put it all
Yep.
together and you got a podcast, you got a post artist, you got, you know, this guy doing this thing or this wood carver over here or something like that. Like it's just, um, yeah, it's amazing. So.
That's awesome. So who's the first band that you made a poster for, like a professional, big time band, I guess you could say?
Um, the first one was okay. So there's two, and they both happened kind of for here. So before I moved here, I knew I was gonna move here. Like I kind of knew I was gonna leave New York for about a year, and it was just like saving money and planning and all that kind of stuff. Um, so what I did was the summer before I moved here, I kind of just reached out to all the clubs that were down here, and just kind of introduce myself and be like, hey, I just, you know, I make flyers and stuff like that. And, you know, if you need anything to promote any of your shows, just let me know. I'd be glad to just like send you some stuff. And, you know, people get emails like that all the time. I don't even think I heard it back from anybody. Um, so then I was just like, I'm just gonna make some stuff. So Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings were playing a show at the Gray Eagle down here. It's a club in Asheville. And it's a really awesome place. It's like small. It feels like a little barn inside, sort of. The vibe there is so great. There's a great show there is great, great. And I had never even been there, you know, but I just was going through all the listings and stuff, and I was like, I love Sharon Jones. I'm gonna live there. I'm just gonna make something. So I literally made, you know, it was just a black and white drawing, 11 by 17, I guess was the size I was working in. And I think I don't remember if I sent them a file. I might have literally just made a stack of photocopies also and just mailed it to them like cold and just was like, here, like use them for the show if you want to promote them around town, stuff like that. You don't know me and I don't know you, but like here's a gift, you know. And turns out that the guys at the club really dug it and they showed the manager of Sharon Jones, and he really liked it. And he wound up hiring me a few years later for a few other gigs for Sharon Jones and a few other bands that he was managing. And I was like, you know, that wasn't even my intention. It was more just to like introduce myself, like here, you know, hey, you know, I don't know you and you don't know me, but I'll give you a little gift, and you know, maybe we can be friends later on, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And what's funny now is the guy who ran the club back then is still a really good buddy of mine. He runs the fantasy baseball league that I'm in. So we're like, you know, we're always talking about baseball and stuff like that. And it's just weird, like how that happened. So that wasn't like a paid gig. That wasn't anything professional. Nobody even asked me to do it. And you know, it's not like I ever reproduced them or turned them into anything. But then the first real one was for the band The Walkmen, and they were also playing at the Gray Eagle. And this is after I'd moved here. And this one was more just like I contacted the band. So same thing, you know, I'm nobody. Like in the beginning, nobody knows who I am. They have no reason to trust me. They have no reason to like fine, you could see some of the drawings I've made, but like, what does that mean to anybody? You know, how many emails a day are they going to get? So, so really, it was just a bunch of just cold emailing every band that's coming to Asheville and just be like, hey, like if you want or need a poster, I can make it for you. You know, And then you could sell them at the show and blah, blah, blah. You know, my rates are like almost nothing, and we could just split sales or something like that. And I'll help you sell them at the show. If you know, most of the bands, obviously I'm not contacting Pearl Jam or something like that. It's going to be, it was all the bands that I know that just rent a van and are just driving around the country for, you know, 6 weeks, and, you know, probably not showering every day and living, you know, on a very small budget, because I had a lot of friends who did the same thing. And, you know, so I know that lifestyle. And I was like, well, okay, we're at least somewhat on a similar level. So like, you know, I'll help you out. And because you probably don't have that much merch for your show, so you can make a few extra bucks, and I can, you know, make something. And they were one of the first bands that ever like even just replied and said, yeah, like that would be awesome. And they had no reason to even say that. They had no reason to even believe me or like know that I could do anything or whatever. And um but it worked out. It was great. And I could still picture the poster in my head. It was like it was a deer with red eyes, and then his antlers spelled out the word Walkman. And
Cool.
yeah, and it was like just a 2-color screen print. I was still learning how to screen print. And it was a mess. I mean, it was just like I didn't, you know, I kind of knew what I was doing, but hardly. And but I brought them to the show, and they were amazing on stage, obviously. And so I was basically the one of the merch jockeys for the day, and just kind of like selling the posters and the t-shirts and all that kind of stuff. And that kind of just started it. Okay, now when I go to the next band, I can say, oh, and here's like something that I made, you know. And then okay, now I got two. Okay, now we get to the third. Now we get to the fourth. You always peppered in with a few friends that I know, you know, like oh, their band. Okay, I'll help you out. And like now I have another piece for the portfolio, you know, and so on and so forth. But that one for the Walkman, that was like the first real one. And then when the show was done, I was able to put it on gigposters.com, like to, you know,
Cool.
post it on there and have all the real poster artists like see my work. I don't know that anybody even saw it, but you know, just the idea, like, oh my God,
Yeah.
I can post something.
Yeah.
And then even I think I sold a few online too, because they had like a marketplace on that gigposters.com where you could sell posters through there. And yeah, so it was that first taste of like, okay, I see how this goes. It's going to be a long haul, and it was. It was that was in 2007. Yeah, that was in 2007. So it's been
Wow.
a long time.
It's been
Yeah,
a little bit of a journey. That's awesome, though.
to say the least.
A
Yeah.
little bit. So why don't you take us along from like when a band contacts you to
Yeah.
do a poster? And so take us along the whole process. So they contact you, and then how much time do you generally have to work on something, and then the whole process of like making it and getting it to the band?
Yeah, that's a great question. So uh, I'm very lucky that I'd say most, if not all of the stuff is the band contacts me first. So I'm past the point of having a cold email and stuff like that, or even, you know,
Nice.
solicit for things, which is very lucky. And I literally think about that every single day. Grateful for it. So I'll get an email, and for instance, we could just use the recent Humphreys poster that I did, just as kind of an example. And yeah, so they had for this one, you know, obviously they wanted to make something just to still stay in contact with their fans. Obviously, nobody's playing shows, so you know, it's like a different. Everything's kind of strange, so it's like, well, let's make something that we could still stay connected. And very rarely do clients kind of give me a prompt. Most of the time, they're just like, we know what you do, like do the thing you do, just make one for us kind of thing, which is another amazing thing. Like, you know, there's rarely direction. I get to kind of do what I feel and what I want. And most
That's
of the
awesome.
time, you know, there's every once in a while there's a revision needed or something's out of context, or I need to clear it up or something, and that's totally fine. But on the whole, I get to just draw what I want, which is amazing. But it works best for everybody, because if I can draw what I really like feel, it's going to be the most real. It's going to be the most, it's going to be the thing that connects the most. So in this case, it was Rachel, and she contacted me and just said, you know, we want, the only idea we have is till we meet again. That was like this, what's the thing that could tide us over? And as soon as she said that, I kind of had this feeling I knew what I needed to do, conceptually. So let's say it's for a show. They'll tell me when the show is. You know, obviously, I need, okay, that's the deadline. You know, obviously,
Right.
if it's not there for the show, I blew it. You know, and
Yeah.
luckily, it never happened. So good for me, I guess. Um, so, okay, first thing, and then what I do, the first thing I always do is scheduling. So I'm going to figure out what kind of timeline do I have. Most of the time, it's best for me if somebody contacts me 4 months in advance is usually good. If it's a month in advance, it might not be able to happen. It really depends on what else is going on. If it's 2 months in advance, you know, it depends. If it's the middle of summer touring season, I don't know. You know, it
Right.
depends. You know, I can't I can't stack too many things, because if I do, the art suffers. I can't, you know, I can only make so much stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously, the money would be better if I could take everything, but then what's
You're not a machine. You have
no.
to be able to create in the way you can create.
Yeah, and if I just put out a bunch of crap, like, you know, because I had to like take everything, then I won't get anything later on. So what's the point? You know, it's fine. So so then I just kind of work backwards. Okay, so show date. Okay, what's the date? Usually say 3 days to a week before that the posters need to arrive to the band, you know, so that they have them either wherever they are, or at the show, or at the venue, or something like that. So, okay, now shipping, how long before that do I have to ship them to get them there? Okay, how long before that is going to take me to print them? Usually that's like a 2 week window. And then how long from there for me to make the artwork? That's another 2 to 4 weeks, you know. So I'm basically just working backwards until I get to the point of where I am. And so it could be, look, the whole turnaround could be like 3 weeks, but that almost never happens. You know, the whole turnaround is usually a month and a half, you know, all told. It doesn't mean I'm working on it every day for a month and a half, obviously, but um, that's a pretty good way. So if somebody contacts me 4 months before, I can, okay, good, I could schedule it out for this time, and, you know, kind of have that going. So then the first thing I do is I doodle. I have, I don't know if I could just like, so there's like a page of
Oh,
just
wow.
doodles, you know, so it's just like little, you know, just ideas, you know, just the first things that come in my head. I'll put on some music, I'll read some lyrics. Um, I'll just look at things that inspire me, and ideas just kind of happen. Sometimes I just move my hand, you know, and just make marks, and then I see something and I'm like, oh, okay, okay. And then start to flesh it out. And a lot of it is, you know, moving my body. The more I can move my body while I'm drawing, the more the artwork feels like something. You know, if I'm just like kind of being too much like this, it feels too stiff, you know. So so I'm just exploring, and I'll spend a few days doing that, just filling that page or filling multiple pages of them, erasing, put them more, and then just looking at them. Big part of my process is starting something and then letting it sit, sleeping, you know, going to sleep at night, waking up in the morning, looking at it again, and just what's, when I look at it again now, I kind of forgot what was there. So now I'm going to see it again, like with the freshest eyes. And what's my first instinct? What's the thing that grabs me the most, or what's the thing that sticks out that's wrong the most? And that's how I can iterate most of the time. And so I'll do that. I'll let it sit. I'll come back. I'll, you know, put a little X next to the ones I like. I'll maybe develop them a little more. And then once I find the one, it it's eventually becomes inevitable. Like, that's the one. I know what's there. I know exactly the little story I'm going to tell. I know all the little cool little things that you can't even see, but they're in there. I know what's going to happen. Um, and then I'll just take that little pencil sketch, I'll blow it up a little bit, and I'll develop it into a sketch. And this is the thing I'm going to show to the band. And I like to make a sketch. It's real loose. It's not like there's no detail or anything like that, but the composition's there, the colors are there. That's very important to me, to show the colors in the sketch. I know some people generally just do a black and white sketch, which is fine, but for me, um, I need to have everything kind of decided from the beginning. And so that basically when I show this to the band, they have to have a clear idea of like what's the poster going to look like. So if the finished poster was on their wall, they just kind of squinted their eyes, from far away. That's what my sketch looks like. So it's the thing. It's just not finished. And that's what I send to the band. And usually when I send that, I also write my story. So that's I'll write a paragraph or two that tells the story. Like, okay, here's what's happening. I know you can see what's happening, but there's more. There's stuff going on underneath. Here's the characters. Here's where they came from. Here's the thing, and I kind of write it in a the way like children's books read. Like it's not heady. It's not like detailed or anything like that. It's just more fantastical, like
Yeah.
here's the fun thing.
Whimsical.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the word. So I'll present it to the band like that. And then it goes different ways. Sometimes they're like, yeah, that's awesome, go for it, or could we change this, or maybe this thing needs to move, or oh, I forgot to tell you we need to add this part to it. Fine, whatever. Because when it's at this stage, it's easy for me to make changes. So if there's a change needed, yeah, I could just run it off real quick, send it again. Okay, if we do it twice, that would be the most, basically. And then once we're all cool, like, okay, we're good, like this is approved. And then I just take that sketch and I blow it up and I just start to develop it. So, and that's what takes the time. So all like the feeling and the concept and the just the vibe and the story, it all happens in the like super rough stuff. Like that's where all the real like essence of it is. And then once that's cool with everybody, now it's just the technique. Now I'm just bringing it to life. I'm making it look really cool, but everything should be there. I'm not going to add anything later on that's going to change it at all, or like, maybe there might be some details that kind of accentuate the things that are already there, but everything's already there in this little baby sketch kind of thing. So yeah, the development is just, it's technical, for lack of a better way to say it. So like if there's a lot of perspective, I got to build my grids, make sure all my perspective is correct, and make sure, where's my camera, how am I going to do all this, and then like, okay, the characters, what's the anatomy, what's their gesture, how's it going to look, what's their face going to look like, all that kind of stuff. And then just building it, drawing it over and over and over and over, just like each time making it a little more what it's going to be. When it's done, when the artwork is done, I'll send it to the band for final approval. And again, there it might be like, could we make the band name bigger, or could we change, I don't know, we have to add something else for the venue, or something like that, like usually tiny stuff. And then from there, then it's printing. So then it's a matter of printing. Most of the stuff I do, especially all the stuff I do for bands, is all screen printed. And nowadays it's weird. I always printed everything myself until I got kind of hooked up with a lot of the bigger bands, and they order like hundreds, sometimes thousands of posters.
Mm-hmm.
And I print everything by hand, and that's just impossible. Like, I'd be dead, so, like literally though. So, yeah, so I outsource, there's a printer in Columbia, South Carolina, the Half and Half, and they're amazing, and they're great people. They're so nice, and we've been working together well enough where we know each other, like, in creatively. So, my colors kind of have a language, and they understand what I'm saying when I'm trying to like speak with these colors and these types of things. So, which is great. So one way or another, depending on like how big the project is, either I'm going to send it out to a printer, which means I have to kind of prep the files in a very specific way. But since I'm a printer myself, I'm setting them up the same way I would set them up for myself, just with a little more information because I'm not going to be there. Or I'm printing it myself, and then I'm downstairs in my shop and just going through the process of screen printing, which is quite an ordeal. And then once the prints are done, signing and numbering, got to pack them, ship them, make sure the shipment gets there in time, which is it's a big part. Like, there's so many there's so much creative stuff to making a poster. There's also so much clerical stuff to making a poster. There's so much clerical stuff to everything I do. It's like, I wouldn't trade my job for anything, but I probably do a lot less drawing than you think I do, and a lot more like just emails and invoices and, researching this, or, just busy work, just
Running the
stupid,
business.
typing and clicking, and it's like there's so much
Mm-hmm.
of that. And so, it's fine. It's all part of the gig. So, and then posters get to the show, make sure that they're there, obviously, and everything's safe and sound. And then once that's done, then I have my personal drop usually, then after the show, depending on how it works out, I'll announce my release, and then that's it. And once that's done, the poster is done. Like, the cycle is done for that poster, and moving on to the next thing. And I like the fact that, like, they're all limited. The whole idea of these is that they're limited editions. Which is cool for many reasons, but one of them is that when it's over, it's over. That thing now has an end date. I have some prints that I make that are, open editions, like more art prints type of thing, and they live forever, and they have a different feeling to them because they feel more eternal, and they're just kind of constantly moving. But I reserve the right to hate them and discontinue them and just be like, nah, they suck now, and like I don't want to make those anymore. Whereas like the posters, like it's a stuck in time, it's a moment stuck in time, which I love. Like I'm a very sentimental person, so it uh it accentuates the sentimentality of everything. Like, for me, when I go back and I look at a poster, I can remember like what I was listening to on the radio when I was drawing that tree in the left corner. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, that's
there's a
incredible.
feeling there, and it lives inside that poster, and it's done. It's 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 over. Like, it had its thing, and that's the beauty of moments in time, is that we pine for them, but they wouldn't be special if we could keep repeating them. So
Yeah.
it's sort of like it's a double-edged sword, but that's kind of the beauty of these posters. So that's the kind of short, I don't know if that's a short explanation of the process, but it's basically scheduling, then sketching, then presenting a sketch, then making the final, then printing, shipping, and then release, and then it's over, and then it's on to the next one. And of course, there's multiple ones going on at the same time,
Of
obviously.
course.
So
Yeah.
there's always like something that's in whatever stage of development at the same time, type of thing.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's very cool. So how